welcome back. Today's video is going to be a bit of a chatty one. I'm going to be talking about my breastfeeding journey. Seeing as though it is World Breastfeeding Week, I thought it'd be a great opportunity to share my story because I've had 3 children. I have managed to breastfeed them all, but each breastfeeding journey with each of them has been very different. Now you'll hear Edie and Mike, and he's got the baby and Flo outside, they're just playing. So it's a rare occurrence you're in my living room with me, because normally it's an absolute mess and the kids are playing in here. So first of all, if you're watching this because you've searched for how to get the perfect latch, how to start breastfeeding, then I really hope that this gives you some form of encouragement, because no matter what anybody says, breastfeeding is difficult. And you will find that it hurts, and you will find that some professionals are very helpful with that. Others will say that it shouldn't hurt. Now, it does hurt. I don't care what anybody says, it hurts. There is varying levels of pain, but breastfeeding hurts, particularly if you are a first-time mum. Those first 2 weeks of breastfeeding my first baby were toe curling. I would have taken labour over that. And my latch was perfect. She didn't have tongue tie, she had no other issues. It's just your body is finding a completely new way of working. And I don't want anybody to get disheartened and think that there's something wrong with them if it's hurting and people are saying that it shouldn't hurt. That's one of the main reasons when I get messages about breastfeeding saying that they give up after like 5 days, 3 days, because it was just too painful for them to persevere with. And if you kind of know that there is an end to that pain, then you can kind of have it in your mindset, okay, well this is only for 2 weeks, and that's all I had. So with my first child, I give birth to her. I didn't have her, they would just literally just give her and put her on my chest, and that was part of what I'd said to my midwife. I never had a birth plan with any of mine, because in my mind a baby entering the world safely is better than you getting stressed out because your plan doesn't go the way that you wanted it. So I wanted as natural a birth as possible, but ultimately I wasn't bothered if I had to have an epidural, a C-section, just get the baby here safe as possible. But in my sort of line of what I wanted was to give birth as naturally as possible, and then for the baby to just be put on my chest and to have that skin to skin contact. And that happened with my first. I did have to wait to have the injection, because that's what I'd opted for with my first, which helps the placenta come away, and also supposedly helps with bleeding, so hemorrhaging afterwards. I can't comment on this at all because I've never had an issue with that, so if it's something that you want to know more about, I can read up about it, but it wouldn't be from a personal like experience point of view. Anyway, so with my first, she latched on. It felt really natural in the first like day or 2. It was only once my milk come in on day 3, and when people talk about milk coming in, I tell you what, you could you could probably feed a whole family. It is, I know it sounds ridiculous, but your boobs engorge, so they fill with milk, and you will feel like the letdown, which sometimes can feel like almost like sharp pains. Sometimes that can be a sign of mastitis, so I'd keep an eye on that. But if you've got a particularly fast letdown, then that can feel like that anyway, regardless. So with my first, I felt so uncomfortable once my milk come in, and I had 2 friends who persevered with breastfeeding, and both of them said the same thing, which was get through the first 2 weeks of feeding and it'll be so much easier after that. The pain completely just goes from that point, but for the first 2 weeks it was toe curling for me. I cannot express that enough. And what I did to help with that was breathing. So I did a lot of hypnobirthing stuff and breathing and mindfulness. So I just really tried to focus on, this isn't going to be forever. I can hear Edie outside. This isn't going to be forever. Breathe in and just really try and breathe out. As soon as I knew I was going to latch her on, then I would breathe out as she latched on, and that helped with the pain. with that initial latch, and once the milk started flowing it was fine, but that initial latch for me was really uncomfortable, even though I had a perfect latch. So don't think that it won't hurt even if you've got the perfect latch. It's mind-boggling, but for some people they say that it doesn't hurt at all, and other people just can't cope with the pain because it's too much. So just be mindful of what your expectations are around that. I exclusively breastfed her till she was 6 months, and then we started weaning her, and then I extended breastfeeding her until she was 2, just over 2. Now when you say that, it comes with all sorts of different connotations. Everybody's different with their breastfeeding journey. With us, up until she was 1, she didn't have any other alternative milk, just breast milk. I would either express it, or she would have it at night time or in the morning, or generally whenever I felt like that she needed it. She would also have water within that time as well, but then once she got to 1, that's when we tried her with different alternative milks. She is allergic to cow's milk, so we've never given her that, only by accident through food when we found out that she had a food allergy. And then that was her. And then with my second, I had a water birth with her, and she come out straight on my chest, and then I literally got out of the pool and just fed her straight away. She was just like on it, like, just listen mum, I know what I'm doing, just leave me to it. And with her it didn't hurt at all, because I felt like my body had been used to what was going on, it knew what to do. And again, the latch was the same, it's perfectly fine, but it didn't hurt at all second time round. So that was a completely different experience. And I remember thinking, oh my god, imagine if this was my experience first time round and I was sat there like wincing in pain. I would have felt a lot differently about it in those first 2 weeks. But yeah, so that was a completely different experience. And then I did the same with her, exclusively breastfed her till she was 6 months old. And then extended breastfed her, she was just over 2 as well. Both of them self-weaned, they just stopped asking for it, so I just didn't offer it them, and that was fine. Then with Arthur boy, who is 10 months old at the minute, I'm still feeding him. When he arrived, I had another water birth with him, and I actually breastfed him when I was still in the water. He just come out, just looked up at me for a little bit, and he was on my chest, and then he just automatically sort of tried to nuzzle down, so then he was fine. However, I noticed that he would make a clicking noise, and although that he was putting on weight, I noticed that he had tongue tie. So with him it was a completely different experience. Again, it wasn't painful for me, he was getting enough milk, but he was getting lots and lots of gas. So he was suffering terribly with colic, and it was because he had 100% tongue tie, which pretty much, and it was short as well. So he just must have compensated really well for it. And the fact that I was already an established sort of breastfeeder, I'd done it twice before, I was possibly compensating for it. And yeah, he managed to still get milk, but he was very gassy, and he was doing this clicking noise, which can be a sign of them trying to stop it if you've got a very fast flow, but can also be one of the first signs that you know that your baby's got tongue tie, because they go like, and it's because their tongue isn't long enough or stretchy enough to keep it on the roof of your mouth, on the roof of their mouth, and that noise is sort of them suctioning off, because when they breastfeed, the tongue goes underneath the nipple and the nipple rests against the top of their mouth, and that way it keeps that suction and just enables them to get milk effectively. For me, I tried to persevere, and I just felt like it wasn't worth his pain for colic. And the midwives and the GP, the health visitor that we've seen, just said, well, as long as he's putting on weight, that's absolutely fine. They don't tend to do anything, they don't tend to cut the tongue tie if they're putting on weight effectively. So I did my own research and looked into it, and asked lots of you guys on Instagram as well, if you come over from Instagram, and pretty much the verdict was that getting it done earlier on is far better than waiting, because it can affect breastfeeding, it can affect them in later life with speech, with eating, with drinking and stuff, especially if it's quite severe tongue tie. But I wasn't given any of this information, so I talked about it a lot on my Instagram and just said, like, what do you guys, have you ever had experience of this? And the vast majority of people paid privately to have it done because the waiting list was so long by the NHS. So I was just like, right, I'm going to do my research at the local ones, and I went somewhere in Manchester who was like highly rated. Quite a few people have recommended them, and I just said, can I come for consultation? So you had to pay for consultation, but if you were suitable for it, then they would do it there and then in that time. So I paid £200 to get his tongue tie snipped, and when I went and showed them, they said, I can't believe that the midwife and the health visitor hasn't referred you and said it's fine because he's putting on weight, because it's like so short and it is right to the end. We're happy to do it now. So we did it there and then in the surgery, and they literally put him on the table, swaddled him up, and there was one of the like nurse people there who held his head still, and the other one just snipped it, and it was just like that, and he screamed bloody murder. But I picked him up straight away and just put him on the boob, and he had no problems latching on again. It was exactly the same. It did feel a little bit different though, and he fell asleep straight away. They checked it, it had stopped bleeding, because actually when you have a tongue tie snipped, usually all they need to do is the pressure of them feeding, and that will stop the bleeding, and it will stop the tongue reattaching as well. If they're bottle fed, you might need to do some exercises, but I can't comment on that because I'm not 100% sure on that. And still to this day, I'm breastfeeding him. He's been breastfed solely till he was 6 months, and then we started weaning him again. Yeah, I actually love breastfeeding. I really hope that you manage to feed your baby in whatever way possible. If that is combination feeding and you're still able to express, if you breastfeed solely and you're like, I've got to get to 6 months, whatever you do, it is a wonderful thing to be part of, to feed your baby. And if you've not been able to feed your baby, please don't get disheartened. Some people, it just doesn't work out. There's lots and lots of reasons why. Ultimately, it is the most important thing that you and your baby are happy. If mum is happy, baby is happy. But there is still so much stigma around breastfeeding and still so much work to be done. So that's why I'm sharing my breastfeeding journey with all 3 of mine. I'm going to be doing another few videos because it is World Breastfeeding Week. So my content this week will be based around breastfeeding. If you want to hear more, or if you want to ask me any questions, then I will be filming them sort of the day before. So get your questions in and I will try my best to answer them. I really hope that you've enjoyed this video. It's been a bit of a different one, sat down in my front room, and I feel like a bit like I'm doing a bit of an interview or something, but I've really enjoyed talking about it, so I might do more videos like this. Let me know what you think, and I will hopefully see you in my next video. See you later. Take care. Bye.